This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcasts, Season 8, Episode 7. My name is Jonathan Kuline, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I am joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Good. I am at my parents' home because we're here for the weekend to go see a concert. So back and enjoying the big city. I've gone to the Greek neighborhood and had Greek food. I just went and got Caribbean food. I'm enjoying the cultures of the city.
Good deal. Good deal.
All right.
Does it feel weird being there and they're not?
Yes. I don't think I've ever stayed here without my parents being here. So that's a little odd, definitely. But I've also haven't had a place in downtown Toronto to myself for a while. So it's also like, oh, this is very convenient. We walked around and did some shopping and stuff. I'm like, this is very convenient.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That being said, I'm also, already I kind of like the peace and quiet of my country estate as opposed to the chaos of downtown. So, yeah. All right. Let's dive into our fact check. The fact check this week, we were talking about the woman who was made for Pike in the 2-part original series episode, and her name is Vina, and she was the woman that was created by the Talosians on Talos 9. We were trying to remember, we were fishing for her name, we couldn't remember it last week, so that's Vina.
There you go.
There you go. And that'll bring us to the headlines. Jaime, will you kick us off with some headlines?
Yeah, the Marvel Zombies official trailer has dropped, as the kiddos like to say. So I believe I read from this article it is 4 episodes, 6, something, 4-part event. So I think very similar to, I've not seen the what's the Eyes of Wakanda? What was the name of the one that just came out?
Yeah, it was Eyes of Wakanda was the limited series they did. Again, only 4 parts over, it was this in July, I guess, or August.
Yeah. And this article says it'll be September 24th, so not that far. So I probably have a little bit of time to watch the Eyes of Wakanda, catch up on anything that might cross over here. They might echo some of the things, but in the zombie verse sort of version.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've already gotten a taste of Marvel Zombies. We got that in the What If series, right? So we kind of get the vibe. And I thought they actually did a pretty decent job of it because it was very much like the comic book series it's based upon, which was originally written, and, Marvel fans will know, but Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead and Invincible, actually wrote that for Marvel, wrote the first 3 series of Marvel Zombies. And so they've got this kind of similar to to Invincible. They've got a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of vibe, the books. And there was definitely that feeling in that What If episode. There was, the running gag about, the head in a bottle, and, there was kind of some humor. It wasn't just like grim and awful, everybody's Walking Dead, right?
Yeah. And I know there were folks in this article, comments that are like, why are the zombies doing these things? The Marvel Zombies is a little different than other zombie media. They're basically the same normal characters, just infested with the urge to eat, right? So they do zombie things, but people are like, why is Zombie Thanos not just wishing for a bunch of brains to appear? Why does he have to go? It's like, well, because he's still basically Thanos, but he also has the blood urge.
Yeah. I feel like it'll be kind of good in this case that it's a limited series. It is, and I felt it too. I read the first few Marvel Zombie series when they originally came out that was probably almost 25 years ago. And I remember thinking these are really good, but the premise wears thin before very long. And I feel like 4 episodes is about right for this too. I don't know that I need to have, a 10-part series focusing on the zombie adventures of Marvel characters. I think 4 is fine.
Yeah. I think it's a good one.
All right. I'm up next. And so we did get news today that they've officially confirmed the name and date for the next Superman movie. So if you enjoyed the David Corenswet starred movie and want to see more of this, apparently David Corenswet and Nicholas Hoult are both returning, and they're going to be starring in something called Man of Tomorrow. Now, I don't know if that's like Superman : Man of Tomorrow. I would imagine it might be, but right now it's just listed as Man of Tomorrow, and it's coming in on July the 9th, 2027. Which, when you consider that this one just came out this summer, 2 years turnaround, and that there's a Supergirl movie coming in 2026, that's pretty good turnover. Like they're not making us do the 5-year waits, the 6-year waits that sometimes you get between installments of some of these series. I know, Jaime, last time we spoke, you had not yet had a chance to watch the new Superman movie. I assume that's still the case.
Yeah, you probably not until it ends up on HBO Max, and then I'll end up watching it. It's a Warner property, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, they're going all in on this stuff. They're doing the Lantern series, and they've got the Penguin, and they got all these different, Peacemaker and all these different things. So, I'm sure it's all going to be hubbed one. Now, wait a minute. I should take that back. I'm not sure, because they do weird things sometimes where they sell the rights to these things to places that don't belong. But I would hope that they would have all these things in one spot so that if you're into it, you can watch all of it.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting to see what ends up happening here, because I've not seen the current film, but the fact that they, James Gunn himself posted the, Lex Luthor in like comic book version in the green power suit, which makes me think a lot of that Superpowers action figure from the 80s.
Yep, I still have one on my shelf. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'm glad to an extent too. Hopefully there will be new challenges and new adventures for Superman to have for years to come. But also, I'm glad it wasn't just like, well, I've defeated Lex Luthor and he just disappears off the face of the earth. Like, part of the fun of comic books is that they're serialized and these characters do come back around. And, I like that it's not just like, oh, and Nicholas Hoult was in the one movie and then he's just gone. Like, if he's the smartest man in the world, shouldn't he be able to get out of prison? Next up, this one's kind of old news, but new news. So there have been rumors since last year that we were going to get this person cast in the new Tomb Raider series. But this week they officially confirmed that Sophie Turner, who played Sansa Stark on Game of Thrones, is going to be the new Lara Croft in the Tomb Raider series that's coming to Amazon. Seems like a good fit. I mean, she's long-limbed and attractive, and she's a pretty good actor. I thought she did a really good job on Game of Thrones. I don't know. Any impressions on the possibilities of Sophie Turner being Lara Croft?
Yeah, I definitely think it could work. I mean, she's definitely got the posh nature, right? And I had to look this up. She is 5'9". I know she's tall. I wasn't sure how tall. So she's got some stature to her. So if you put her on the Linda Hamilton pull-ups diet and exercise regime, I'm like, dude, I could totally see it. Like, if you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm like, go look at Linda Hamilton, Terminator 1, and then look at her in Terminator 2 and tell me those are the same person, right? It's like, the I don't know, we say it's like the Marvel workout and the Marvel diet. It's not applicable here because this is Amazon, this is Tomb Raider, but it's like the same thing, right? Like, you can just go get toned enough, get shredded enough to fit here. So I think it could work.
Yeah, I feel like as I was thinking about this casting, and I was thinking about Alicia Vikander, who of course was in the most recent theatrical movie that they did, and I think Haley Atwell did the voice for the animated one that was just on Netflix. Do you feel like maybe they peaked too soon with Lara Croft? Like, the first person they cast was Angelina Jolie, which was pretty damn perfect. Like, she is pretty much the living embodiment of that character from that era. I guess Alicia Vikander made sense because it was supposed to be a younger iteration. Here, we don't really know, but I mean, didn't they kind of nail it right off the hop?
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact you used the word era, because that era of Tomb Raider Lara Croft is different than I don't recall if they're considered reboots or if they're considered more like prequel for the younger Lara Croft. I don't remember the lore and how it fits in, but it is, Alicia Vikander, a much more slender, slight. I'm like, okay, makes sense, right? Closer to like teenager type person than grown woman, experienced kind of thing. Like a young Indiana Jones versus regular Indiana Jones.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm less clear where they're going to go with the Sophie Turner version. Like, where does that fit? I've actually lost track of what modern Tomb Raider is like and where things go.
Yeah, I feel like Tim would be our expert on that one. He's obviously still away, but he is the most devoted Tomb Raider player that I know. He's played, I think, every single iteration since the very beginning. You know, he jumped on it when I think way back in the PlayStation era. I think he started playing the original Tomb Raider games and has stayed right through. So we'll have to get his opinion when he returns, because I'm sure he'll have some thoughts. All right, sad news to share for our next headline. The actor Graham Greene, best known for his Oscar-nominated role for Dances with Wolves, he died this week after a lengthy illness, according to his agents. He was 73 years old. Canadian. He's from Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and he was very Canadian. I know he's one of those faces that a lot of people will recognize. I don't know if he was a household name necessarily, but he was in so many productions because he is an Indigenous person to North America, and he, just had that very distinctive face and voice. He was, obviously in things like Dances with Wolves, but he was also in, The Green Mile. He was in Maverick. He was super funny in Maverick. He was in the Twilight Saga. He was in Die Hard 3. He was in The Last of Us in season 1 when the two main characters are traveling out west and they encounter an Indigenous couple that live in the woods.
Right.
The actor in that is Graham Greene. And here in Canada, he was definitely extremely well known because, we do have laws around the need to cast people who are Canadian. And he ended up in a lot of stuff up here. And he was obviously well known for these, dramatic roles and everything else. But he was hilariously funny, incredibly charming, just an absolute, a master comedian, very deadpan, very dry, but super, super funny. And I've been seeing lots of Canadian social media people sharing little clips that he did on shows. He would jump on these, comedy shows in the 1980s and 90s. And he was just terrific. He was just an absolutely hilarious, down to earth person. And I was definitely feeling a little stung by this loss because, we had seen him just so recently, only a couple of years ago. He was still, in big time properties. So yeah, it's very sad to see him go, but huge legacy. And, again, just I liked that he wasn't just this stereotypical. He was the first Native American or Indigenous person to be nominated for an Oscar since the 70s. And so that was a big deal. And, it's just this one hit me a little bit that, he's a little piece of Canada that's eclipsed this sort of stereotypical, well, we need somebody who's Indigenous. He just played roles. He was a good actor. It was just as simple as that. And so, yeah, very, very sad to hear that he's gone.
Yeah, I looked at his IMDb, his filmography. He actually has 8 upcoming things. Well, maybe only 6 of these, because some of these are completed, some in pre-production, maybe 4. I don't know. They show it really weird. So we might see his face a few more times, is what it seems like, even post-mortem.
It's good. Yeah, and that's always a weird one too, where you're like, didn't that person die? But glad to know that he's got a few more things out there. And again, what a legacy. He's left a lot of work behind that will stand the test of time. And and people will hopefully recognize how special he was. Not quite the same thing, but we did lose something else this week that kind of made me very sad. The Canadian animation studio Nelvana has announced that they are shutting down. It's been around for almost 55 years and created a ton of iconic works, particularly for Canadians, but worldwide known properties, like huge, massive, properties. The Magic School Bus, Franklin the Turtle, Rupert, The Adventures of Tintin, Berenstain Bears, Babar, Little Bear, And then they also did, famously for our audience, these are the guys who in the 1970s did the animated Boba Fett cartoon that is in the iconic Star Wars holiday special. This is a big piece of Canadian animation history that has just unfortunately stopped doing what it was doing. When I was a journalist back in the day, when the Tintin movie came to movie theaters, I was super excited to get a chance to interview one of the founders and creators of Nelvana. And I kind of, like just a scotch unprofessionally was just gushing. I was just like, I'm so excited to talk to you. Like, I'm such a huge fan of all the work that you've done. And, and he just didn't understand. This is a guy named Patrick Loubert, did not understand at all why I was so excited. And I'm like, because you guys worked on like these incredibly important, like childhood defining shows. And, for him, he was like, I'm really glad people like the work. And I was like, dude, like, it's so good. Like, some of this stuff is so indelible. When I was a kid, I'm sure you had the same experience when they would wheel the TV with the VCR hooked up to it into this classroom and you knew that your teacher was hungover. That was like the highest, happiness that you could get out of students in school. And they did have rules about what they could and couldn't show. And one of the things that they would show us were these special cartoons that were done by Nelvana, because they were considered Canadian animation and part of Canadian culture. So they would bring these things in and they would show us these cartoons. So there's these handful of cartoons that we watched several times, depending on which teacher you had and what kind of alcohol dependency they had. We would watch these things. So like The Devil and Daniel Mouse was one that they did, which is a take on the original story, The Devil and Daniel Jones, but like animated with mice. And it was really, really well done. And this is from like, gotta say, late 70s. They did one called A Cosmic Christmas, which is one of the funniest, weirdest things you'll ever see, where basically like these aliens come down and they're trying to understand human beings at it's Christmas time, and they like, basically they're like stand-ins for the three wise men. It's pretty weird and out there, but I'm telling you, like, ask anybody around the age of like 45 to 60 here in Canada, we will all have seen that strange cartoon in our schools. So yeah, again, it's, if I'm kind of mourning this loss too. This is a big part of Canadian history and just animation in general. I mean, the Magic School Bus is iconic. I don't know, do any of these titles permeate for you? Do you feel like these are ones as well?
Yeah, Magic School Bus for sure. Berenstain Bears, Babar, those definitely are trigger here. And the logo I actually recognized too. If you had said the name, I wouldn't have known, but the bear with the
polar
arc
bear
of
looking
stars, yeah.
Yeah. There's been some really good pieces. We'll have in our show notes a link to this article from comicbook.com, but there's a whole bunch of different pieces. The Globe and Mail here in Canada did a nice piece. There's been a few sort of, people recognizing the gravity of this and understanding how just kind of relevant this is. And yeah, I mean, again, to everything there is a season, but it's really hard to see things like that go, like you knew when you saw that logo creep across your screen as a little kid here in Canada that you were going to be in for something. And it's sad to think that they aren't going to be making more. But yeah, especially for our nerdiverse, that the Star Wars animation in the original holiday special, Boba Fett, with his electroshock rifle and everything, that they were the first ones to bring Boba Fett to life. They essentially collaborated with Lucas to create that cartoon, and that's an indelible piece of Star Wars history too. So they will be missed. All right, it's time for the main part of our show. This week we're going to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We're going to talk about Alien Earth. We're going to talk about Peacemaker. And of course, we like to talk about Star Trek things above and beyond. This being a Star Trek podcast, we're going to talk about Strange New Worlds, Season 3, Episode 9, Terrarium. Jaime, what do you got for your elevator pitch for Episode 9?
It's real simple. This is a trope. It's happened in Star Trek. Almost every series has one, and it is enemy mine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, what if we do one of those episodes?
Yeah. I wrote it down. I said, well, there's a couple ways to look at this. It's either enemy mine or it's Arena, the prequel from the original series, or it's Darmok from TNG, but not as well done. You're right. This was like the trope of tropes. This is like the most Star Trek lean into the skin. But this was actually a direct prequel, right? So this is basically in this episode we get, on its surface it's about Ortegas crash lands on an uninhabited little planet, finds out that there's a Gorn living there, and the two of them have to work together to survive and get their way back to their homes. But then, as the episode goes on and we find out that, this was all set up by someone, it's set up by the same characters that we later see, because here we are in a prequel verse. It is a stage setter for the classic TOS episode, the Arena, where we see Kirk take on the Gorn, right? So it's weird. It's weird to have this done as a prequel where they're basically like, this didn't go as we planned. We'll have to try this again. It's like, really?
An odd choice for that, to try to keep it in continuity of like, you're not going to remember any of this. You'll have the experience, sure, but you're not going to remember talking to me here mid beam out.
Yeah. Yeah. What were your impressions? Were you when you were watching this, did you know what it was? And were you immediately like, oh, okay. Or were you like, oh no, here we go again?
No, I was totally fine with it because it was a different take on, like you see somebody who is, damaged by the Gorn fairly recently, but not quite as fully damaged as like La'an is. So I think this plays out differently with that character, and she comes up very important in the end.
Yeah.
The difference here of like having it be again very similar to Enemy Mine of like, hey, I don't trust this thing. I think it's maybe even going to try to kill me, even though it just saved me from the weird alien bugs. And even threw me some meat of like, oh, is this to get me to lower my eyes so you can attack me, right? Like there's a lot of mistrust, and then it leads to like trying to learn each other's culture and communicating through a sort of makeshift, universal translator. I also am sort of tickled pink that this ended up being a female Gorn, and continuing my long running hypothesis that Gorn sort of age in a weird way, so geriatric Gorn is what Kirk ends up fighting. and very, very young babies are more like xenomorph babies, very animalistic, and they kind of go through there. Tell me that this wasn't, especially because it was a female Gorn that we discover from communicating. Tell me this wasn't like an old grandma Gorn, and that's why she was way more cool with not attacking and like, hey, hang out with me. Let's play these games and stuff. Like it gave me the way that the cave makeshift house was arranged.
Yeah, and it definitely, it almost was a bit of a tongue in cheek. Like, if this was two men, like the Arena, they'd have fought. But since it's two women, they try and figure it out and play some board games instead. And like, it was almost a bit of a damning look at Kirk and his, the way he behaves versus like Ortegas is like, well, I'm really suspicious, but okay, there's probably good signs here. We can make this work. And Kirk was like, I'm going to use a hammer fist and punch this guy in the head. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What did you have for your best pew, pew, pew?
I feel like it's 50-50, right? So kind of on the surface, there's the big pew that they do to ignite the gas atmosphere.
Yeah, the gas giant when they brush up against the gas giant planet.
Yeah, ignite that to be a signal flare that Enterprise is going to notice and say, out of all these hundreds of moons, that's probably the one where she's at.
Yeah, I thought the part that I thought was kind of the most fun is when she first encounters the Gorn, and the Gorn picks her up and basically holds her over one of those creature holes, like Ortegas is the bait on the hook. And then when the thing sticks its head out, she like whomps it and then, and then rips it apart and they eat it together. I thought that just the idea that Ortegas was just being like held over like a worm on a hook kind of made me laugh, and that little bit of action where this thing starts slithering out and then she crunches it. I thought that was actually kind of a funny bit of pew pew pew.
The one Easter egg that I wanted to say before I forget is the sort of meta plot is, well, are we going to sacrifice potentially more crew to try to go through this unstable wormhole? And there's a ticking clock of, well, we can't sit here and figure it out forever because we got to get these vaccines over to some colonists. And to do that, I think they're going to hand it off to the USS Constellation and Decker. I don't remember what his rank was stated. I'm going to say captain. And I think Decker Commodore Decker from the USS Constellation was from the Doomsday Device episode of TOS.
There you go.
So I think that was one of the Easter eggs I noticed there.
Good one. Yeah, I obviously we talked about, the Easter eggs of, just the homage or prequel for Arena. It definitely Darmok we talked about, but you're right. They kind of done this in almost every single iteration of Trek. The episode where was it Tuvok and Neelix have to work together on was it the one with the elevator? I feel like they did an episode together where they were at odds and then they had to work together. But I'm sure there was one in DS9 too, but it's drawing a bit of a blank. But I feel like they've done this trope legitimately in Star Trek multiple times, and then obviously it's, as you say, Enemy Mine. For those who haven't seen it, is classic 1980s movie about Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. Two sides fighting a war in space. One side's the humans, the other side's these aliens, and they both crash land on the planet, and they basically have to work together to survive this planet. But it's a full-length movie, so this kind of just goes on for quite a while. And the other thing that when Ortegas yelled, "I made water," I immediately was flashing to Castaway. When she's like, I'm stuck here, I'm by myself, and she's kind of got a little bit of the Tom Hanks vibes from Castaway. That just kind of felt a little bit like an homage somewhere in there. What'd you have for your best quotes? There's some good ones.
Ooh, I should have written some of these down because I'm missing. I'm not going to get the exact quote, but it's when Ortegas is teaching the Gorn how to play chess, and they kind of show like, no, only the knight can do, jumping over other pieces. And then eventually he's like, you won 3 times in a row. Are you like hustling me? Like, what's happening here? Yeah.
Oh, I should have said for Easter eggs, how about MacGyver? I mean, listen, Ortegas is the pilot. That's been the running kind of gag / part of the show is, I'm Erica Ortegas, I fly the ship. She's pretty handy. Like, she figures out how to make a moisture absorbing machine so that she has water to drink. And then she figures out how to basically turn like a tricorder into a universal translator that can speak Gorn basic. Like, that's pretty good. Like, is that just a survival school thing that they teach you at Starfleet? That's impressive.
Yeah, if this was DuckTales and Huey, Dewey, and Louie, it would be like Junior Woodchuck guidebook type material, right?
Absolutely.
Like, here's how you do this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of quotes that I took down. I thought the first, the cold open part where Ortegas and Uhura are kind of making fun of Spock, and he says, "I maintain my weight to within 1.8 kilograms. Is that not obvious?" Making fun of Spock's weight and watching him get flustered was pretty funny. I made water was a pretty funny one from Ortegas. If you want to eat me, you'll have to earn it from Ortegas. You can leave that one wherever you want it. Don't look at it, just eat it. I also realized a couple of these are pretty bad innuendos. You can let your mind go wherever you want. Don't look at it, just eat it, Ortegas said earlier. And I really liked the line I thought the line of the show was from Una, who said, "Only Erica would be crazy enough to light a planet on fire to get our attention." Big questions for this one. Well, I mean, I guess there's not big questions. I feel like this one steered hard into the prequel problem and then immediately pulled out of it at the last second by, hey, we're gonna, it's the Metrons again, and they're doing, and we're setting this up, and we're almost a direct prequel to Arena. It's like, was this? I don't know. This felt a little bit in a season where I think there's been some pretty high highs. This one kind of felt both going to the trope that they went to and also sort of pulling out at the last second there, so that really there's really no there. I mean, really what you're supposed to take away from this is that Ortegas is going to be okay after a season where she suffered some pretty bad trauma and messed up a few things. And now we're supposed to, I guess, have gotten this chapter behind her and she's feeling better. Also, I felt like the fact that like she must have been beamed back to the ship and then said to Lon, like, we were working together and you just murdered her. Like, I get that Lon's got her own issues with the Gorn, but do you feel like that there really was a missing piece there of like, how would Lon feel about like just absolutely murdering and not necessarily innocent, but not necessarily bad Gorn here?
Yeah, I feel like this episode needed like 5 more minutes because they did cover some other pieces, right? Like we skipped over a tiny matter of Uhura, being obsessed with bringing Ortega's back, and even just like overriding and fudging the numbers, and Pike calling her out like, yeah, I knew you did that, right? I just needed you to have some official cover for a thing that I wanted to do as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of learning there, but then they have the Uhura, reconnecting with Ortega's, and I'm a little surprised they didn't give at least just a few minutes of, I saw a lot of people online being like, hey, what the heck? What did La'an do? It's like, bro, not only is it in line with her character, right? When you have her trauma and her saying directly to Ortega's brother, Beto, like in the documentary, like, if you see the Gorn, you shoot to kill, unless you're lucky enough that you can like run away, right? Like as another option. In this scenario, all she knows is Ortega's emerged from a place right behind her is a Gorn, without really evidence of like, hey, we're buddies coming out hand in hand or something, right? Like maybe a Gorn just coincidentally happened to come out and emerge to attack at that time. And it's a situation where play it out differently, right? Let's pretend we didn't know as the audience, and let's pretend a Gorn does rip Ortega's to shreds. People be like, oh my God, she had a gun on the Gorn. Why didn't she just shoot the Gorn? It was like, exactly. Like,
yeah.
Split second decision. It was the wrong one here. We know that. Ortega's knows that. And I'm surprised that they didn't cover that piece. And I wonder if they kicked that can down the road for a different discussion between Ortega's and La'an.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a fair point. It did feel, I think you're right. I think it did feel like there was maybe just a little bit missing from that, and maybe that's why I wasn't as happy or satisfied by this episode as some of the previous ones. It just felt like it was just a little lacking. But
I mean, where are they going to go with it? So we know that Batel is part Gorn, and we're still kind of wondering, well, hey, what's going to happen with her? Is Pike going to be the one to throw in La'an's face? Like, are you going to pew 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 my girlfriend if she burps funny?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. They haven't really touched on that. They, obviously she's part Gorn, but she's also a ranking captain too. So it's like, hey, the security officer is side-eyeing me all the time. What's up with that? It will be interesting to see how they land this plane. So this was episode 9 of a 10-episode season. Next week will be the final one. It'll be interesting to see what they do. We obviously last season ended on a cliffhanger. It'll be interesting to see. And, even season 1, when we ended that one, had, the Hemmer episode was towards the end of the season where we lost Hemmer. I wonder if there is going to be something momentous next week, or if we're just going to go out with another episode, if there's, big stakes, or how we're going to sort of lead forward. It sounds like we're not going to have to wait as long between seasons as we have previously. So hopefully we'll get a chance to, not have to wait a couple of years or between, and that would be good. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they're gonna do. Do you have a sense of what would feel right to you, or do you just want to see the best possible show?
I mean, I'm kind of peeking ahead here. Oh, I closed the tab. We know the title of the next episode. One sec.
It is called New Life and New Civilizations. Yeah,
so, I mean, that could go in a million different ways, but I'm still holding out my secondary hypothesis for the Gorn, which is Batel somehow, her messed up DNA combo causes the Gorn to turn into what we see later with Kirk. That was my sort of dark horse.
And questionable fashion choices with, like, the gold pants and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'd like to see like the Batel the Weregorn, where she like, full moon, she looks at the window and turns into a Gorn. Like, I think that would be pretty fun to explore. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I think this hasn't been a perfect season, but it's been lots of good moments and definitely some really strong stuff and definitely feels like they're kind of vibing towards, the original series. We know we're getting another full season and then we're getting a little truncated season 5 to wrap up this one. So it's weird to think that you actually have a countdown on how many episodes you've got left, but I'll be curious to see what they decide to do for the final one. All right, let's move over to Alien Earth. So we had season 1, episode 5, In Space, No One, ... This was, I think, the episode that I was most anticipating and happy to finally get. This is basically from the first episode, we kind of know that things went awry on the alien or on the Weyland-Yutani ship, and that's what it turned into, this, basically this rocket headed towards Earth, and it crash lands, and that's sort of where we pick things up. We saw some glimpses that things had gone wrong, and we kind of knew that the character of Morrow had, kind of messed over his one of his crewmates, because we saw her say that, very angrily at him in the first episode. We saw that as just a very, very short glimpse of that. It was definitely fun to go back and look at this. Like, this felt the most like an Aliens episode that I would have predicted, like things are falling apart on the ship. What's going on? Who's behind it? Aliens are loose, but it's not just the xenomorph. There's the eyeball creatures. There's the ticks. There's all these different things. This was, I think, the best episode so far. And I mean, no surprise, this was entirely written and directed by Noah Hawley himself, who is the showrunner behind this and the creator of this. I thought this was actually a really propulsive and engaging episode, and it kind of made me not like some of the other stuff. Big shout out to Babu Sise, who plays Morrow. He was terrific, and a really good supporting cast of characters. It felt really like the original Alien movie, like the ship, the way things were built, the outfits, the way they interacted, the chain smoking. It just kind of felt very much like it belonged in the Alien universe. What did you think of this?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty fantastic, and it doesn't rely on just the xenomorph. I thought it was pretty well paid off for all of these different creepy creatures that have been collected in the cargo. My significant other missed the first half of this episode, and so she asked me to catch her up. I'm like, okay, so hear me out. So these bugs figured out a way to escape this canister. The scientist doesn't know that. One of the bugs just absolutely laid a ton of eggs inside of this lady's water. And this dude here was, for some reason, eating some hot Tabasco sauce when they told him not to, and he's choking and he needs water. So he drank all of this water. I'm sure the bugs are going to infest him. You see the octopus eyeball thingy that I couldn't figure out, like, was it trying to help in some way? Because it, like, clanks on the glass almost like, hey, that thing is getting out. You should notice this.
Yeah.
And it takes over an engineer and tries to maybe talk. I'm not sure what it was doing. It does face off against the xenomorph, which is kind of cool, as it fights and it says, okay, I got to abandon this body because this thing is beating me up.
Yeah.
It was really kind of neat to see that payoff. Like, what the heck is this thing? What's going on there?
Yeah, and I wonder if that's foreshadowing too, because we have seen the eyeball creature. It was trying to attach itself to one of the hybrids in the first or second episode, I think. And I wonder if it's looking for a stronger body. But it seems like they have, you're right. It seems like they've set it up as, multiple people have said in a couple of different episodes that this thing is extremely intelligent, the eyeball creature. And when it gets loose, the scientist, the researcher, the xenobiologist, is freaking out because she's like, uh-oh, like that's the one I was really not wanting to get loose. And then yeah, like taking control of that guy and going right at a full-sized, like 6 foot tall xenomorph. It definitely feels like maybe the key to defeating the sort of larger amount of xenomorphs that are now on Earth will be some kind of connection between the eyeball creature and the hybrids. Its brains in the body of something that's that tough maybe is the sort of the kicker that's going to be the thing that they need in the end. Again, only 3 episodes to go in this season, and they haven't explicitly said like we're doing more, we're doing different, or is this going to continue? I feel like it would be weird if they didn't do it, but I was thinking about like what would be best for this, and I was like, what I'd really like is coincidentally this show, not coincidentally, this show is being done by Noah Hawley. Noah Hawley is the creator of the Fargo TV show, which is an anthology series. It's not all about the same characters. It's about the same place, and some of the things overlap. I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool to do like an Alien anthology series where like Alien Earth is the first part, but you don't have to stick with this sort of one part of the story. You can kind of just explore the whole universe in different chunks. Maybe that would be more satisfying, because I just like, how do you keep this going? It's just like, well, then the aliens got out and went here. I'm like, now we're talking Jurassic Park, and I'm out. I'm hard out. Like, if it's like, hey, we have to go track down the aliens because now they're in the jungle, that's Predator. I don't want to see that either. Like, it's gonna lose the things that make aliens aliens. And again, the reason why I love this particular episode was because it felt really like aliens, and I don't know if I'd be happy if they were just like, stretching this out too far.
Yeah, that's a good point of like, can they wrap this stuff up well enough to make it feel satisfying if it's a one and done, or satisfying if it's a anthology that maybe loosely continues, in the future. I don't know. I do agree that this episode was really cool. I did like it a lot. And I did take a note here that the lab stuff, art imitates and inspires other art, which then sometimes go back in a circle. So the visuals here in this episode, especially with like the canisters that they use for the creatures, made me think a lot of the intro to the video game Super Metroid, which itself is heavily influenced by the existence of Alien and Aliens.
Absolutely.
Samus Aran there's no denying that there's links there to, Ellen Ripley and Sigourney Weaver's character. But the intro to this 16-bit video game does a really good job of giving you sort of moody music that sort of gets more urgent. You hear, electronic devices, and then you hear this creature sort of making little sounds, and it zooms out to the title screen. And I did link here, for those of you who look at the show notes, the 30 seconds or so. You see dead scientists on the floor, and then the Metroid, the creature in the canister. Again, very similar to what we saw here in Alien Earth. And again, Metroid itself is heavily influenced by the existence of Aliens franchise.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and really well noted. I played along with my daughter. She's a big Metroid fan, and played Metroid Dread, which is one of the most recent versions that's available for the Switch. And that game, you're basically being hunted through the levels by an alien-esque character. At one point, you're kind of able to avoid them, and then they figure out how to track you. And it is very Aliens coded, like very, very much like it belonged in part of that universe. And I don't think she's ever seen any of those movies. I don't think she's not a huge horror buff. But I definitely, when I was, playing along with her and watching her play through these levels, was very struck by like, oh yeah, no, there is so much there. I was not a Nintendo kid. I was, this is how old I am. I was a Sega kid. So I didn't really play Metroid till later in life. And definitely when I got there was like, oh yeah, okay, so this is like Alien.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll be curious. 3 more episodes. This one obviously very focused backwards, but it does end with a little tag up to, Moro basically been given the keys to the castle by Yutani to go and get the species back from Boy Cavalier. So it's kind of an interesting place to sort of break the season and just sort of say, okay, this is what really happened, and here's where we go from here. And it kind of sets the stage for, like, you know, this is going to be pretty big, actiony. You know, the last episode was kind of slow paced and a little weird. This one definitely, you know, obviously a bit of a prequel to the series. The next 3 episodes, I think, are going to be pretty propulsively moving forward to sort of resolve the corporate espionage / you know, aliens loose on a island full of robots part of the story.
Yeah, and I can't recall if we went over this part, but the whole sabotage that happened was the chief engineer that was promised by Boy Cavalier, hey, if you can make these things show up in my Prodigy island, then I'll find a way to give you a hybrid body. I'll give you a better body. So it's not as if Boy Cavalier is like innocently, quote unquote, innocently taking advantage of this once in a lifetime opportunity. He actually was instrumental in making this disaster happen in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was, and I think that was part of the most interesting part of this episode was it felt very much like an Alien movie in this, you know, there's something loose on the ship, but it's not just the alien that's loose on the ship. It's multiple different aliens loose on the ship. And there's this curveball of, and somebody on the crew is behind this. And so you're meeting the different members of the crew and you're trying to figure it out. And then even the answer to that question is a curveball. I thought that was really well done. I like it when shows surprise me. I guess, like, you know, we joke about it on this show sometimes that some of these things can be a little formulaic. I like it when they're throwing curveballs. It's fun to watch. All right, let's move on to Peacemaker, Season 2, Episode 2, A Man is Only as Good as His Bird. Not sure that's how that goes, but here we go. This one was interesting. You know, we got the gang back together. We had to deal with the after effects of what happened in the first episode, where, of course, Peacemaker accidentally ends up killing his duplicate self from another universe, dimension, something, and calling up Vigilante to come over with a bone saw was, I mean, I thought the first season of the show was both disgusting and hilarious, and they are really leaning into that again this season, because that was just something else. At one point, he drops his own duplicate's head on the floor. Like, it was just, that was a whole thing. But yeah, it was interesting, you know, to get the whole gang back together, and you sort of, you know, they're all in different places. There was some good sort of, you know, exposition on sort of how everybody's feeling, especially when they're together. And then it, you know, we get this whole part where, you know, Argus is investigating Peacemaker and trying to figure out what's going on with the portal in this house. So they send in the crew to investigate his house while they know that he's out. And then Eagly takes over. And we get one of the most disgustingly over-the-top, violent scenes involving a bird in the history of television. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock only wishes he could have done this in The Birds. This Eagly ripping people's eyeballs out was, I mean, that was a hardcore scene, that last few minutes of the episode, where Eagly is just taking on all of these, like, theoretically trained killers. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a really fun episode for a lot of those reasons. He's talking about, like, the, you know, one-on-one John Wick bird fight. You know?
Get this bird a pencil.
Yeah. Also, you know, Vigilante's a definite weird person character. And he's not wrong, though. Like, wait a minute. So, like, I'm your friend when you need to chop up a body, but I'm not your friend when you're having the orgy? Like, you couldn't have invited me over?
Well, and it's funny how they're not shying away from the fact that, like, Vigilante is a genuine psychopath. Like, fits the textbook definition of a psychopath. He has, like, no remorse. He has, like, you know, like, he is an absolutely stone cold psychopath. And so it doesn't faze him. That the scene in the first season where where Peacemaker freezes up, he's supposed to kill the family that are suspected of being the butterflies, and he can't pull the trigger, and Vigilante's like, I got it, buddy. And he just starts picking off the kids and picking off the wife, and it's just like humming to himself while he does it. And you're like, oh, he's insane. Like, he's genuinely unhinged. And same thing here, where he's just like, well, he's like, I didn't even think you were interested in sex, Peacemaker says to him. And he's like, well, it's not about sex. It's about, bonding with my best friend. And like, he didn't want to come to the orgy to have sex with all the different people. He wanted to come to the orgy because he wanted Peacemaker to invite him to an orgy. It's just like, it's a way of looking at it.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they lead into the other pieces, right? So at the tail end here, you have Peacemaker, going back to the other reality and sending the text message that he tried to send with the alternate Peacemaker's phone, but obviously that's not going to work until you're actually in connectivity with the network. So seeing what they do there and what, if anything, to do with Harcourt here in the I don't know, Prime universe. I'm not sure what to call the main Prime universe that Peacemaker's from. Our Peacemaker's from
DCU Take Two.
Yeah.
DCU 2.1. I don't know. It's an unusual, like, there's a lot of stuff happening because, again, the show does have lots of characters. So you do get to spend some time with, Economos. You get to spend some time with Adebayo. We get to see what's going on with her and her relationship. Harcourt clearly, has got a lot of stuff going on. We saw that in the first episode and it continues here. Adrian is just kind of crazy. There's definitely a lot of stuff going on. They've got the pressure from Argus. They've clearly got the ramifications of what they did in season 1 from Waller. And then they've got this alternate dimension thing going on. And yeah, there's a lot of pieces on the board after only 2 episodes in. But this show continues to be just not afraid to just absolutely go for it. Like, as I did think to myself, oh, Eagly's going to be there at the house, and maybe like Eagly will I honestly didn't think it was going to be quite as savage as it was. I thought maybe Eagly would go get Chris or something, go get the Peacemaker and bring him back or something. I did not envision that it would just be like mercilessly murdering people, but I'm so glad it did. Like, again, it just made for a really memorable scene, and again, I like that a show isn't afraid to just say, like, let's just go. And that's what this show does. I think when it does its best is just like, yeah, we're going to go there. We're going to go to the places you didn't think we were going to go. All right. I think that's going to do it for our main part of the show. So let's move on to our watch list. Jaime, what do you got for us this week?
Yeah, I mentioned last week that K-pop Demon Hunters was the most watched movie ever on Netflix. And given that we just had the long Labor Day holiday here in the U.S., my significant other and I said, hey, let's just go ahead and watch the movie. Let's see what it's all about. And it's pretty good. It's definitely a thing that I think could have something for just about everybody. Like, to be really clear, if you do not like musicals and singing, like, you're going to have a real rough time. There is a lot of that. I mean, K-pop is right in the title. So you've got to like that. But I liked a whole bunch of things that they had here that sort of work in sort of heavy contrast to some of the struggles that like Disney and Pixar have had recently. So from a story perspective, I really appreciated the fact that there's 2 main stories happening here. One is surface level. These demon hunters have a villain that they can punch in the face. Yeah. Right? Like something that like the kiddos can get. But at a deeper level, it's really about being accepting yourself and being accepted in society, right? It's got that layer for it that is more adult, and hopefully will sort of ring and provide a message for kids. They give each of the characters a very different style. So how many times have we heard the like, hey, if you took the hair off of the Disney or Pixar characters more recently, they would all look the same, right? Can't tell Luca apart from Elio, apart from, you name it here. That doesn't happen here. The 3 girls, Rumi, Mira, and Zoe, all look very different. They have different hairstyles, different hair color. Their body types are different. One's very tall, one's very short, one's kind of medium. You have different weapons. So if you were like, hey, is this kind of like Ninja Turtles? Like, yes, you can tell them apart. This one has a regular sword. That one's got little throwing knives. This one has a big old, poleaxe kind of thing, right? But I think kind of more importantly for me was, especially because this is a property that has women characters, right? A common complaint around animation is like, hey, they let Shrek get ugly. They let all these male characters get ugly. And all the women look exactly the same. They've got that Pixar face, right? Remove the hair and they all kind of look the same, right? Like they're not letting them be expressive because they got to look pretty. These ones continue to look pretty, but then they have these like crazy anime manga kind of facial expressions. They let them get ugly. They let them get weird. And I think it really works pretty well. It lets you get more, sort of love with the characters because they feel more like people and less like dolls. So worth a try if you're wondering, hey, what is this all about? What are all the kiddos watching? Why is this the most popular or most watched movie on Netflix ever? It's because it's kind of got something for everybody. And boy, oh boy, the people at Sony are like, I can't believe we didn't put this in theaters. I can't believe there aren't Happy Meals. I can't believe so.
And yet it is now in theaters, and it is, one of the hottest movies in theaters. And there's a karaoke version apparently that's available on Netflix now too. So if you want to sing along, you can do that too. Like, this is a real thing, and no doubt that this is going to be a franchise, right? Like, they're going to do more of these. It's such a hit.
Yes, so it does resolve in a very sort of Star Wars, the original A New Hope version. Very satisfying, but with clear room to make sequels if you wanted to. So no doubt there will be a K-pop Demon Hunters 2.
Yeah. Well, and again, just the fact that it's gotten so popular that they went from television to the movie theater in spite of the fact that it wasn't supposed to is, that's like printing money now. So yeah, good win. Tim is away this week, as we talked about, but he did feel the need to add something to our watch list, which made me laugh. And this is definitely aimed for you, Jaime. 11 seasons of Paw Patrol are now available on Paramount Plus. So if you have a lot of Sundays and laundry to do, you have a lot of Paw Patrol available.
There we go. Oh my goodness. I had to look this up. So this is Canada's own Paw Patrol, by the way, according to Network TV Ontario.
TV Ontario.
And the Wikipedia entry says Paw Patrol is a Canadian children's animated TV series.
Wow, look at that. I didn't even realize that was from the land of the Great White North. That's amazing.
Yeah, and there are indeed 11 seasons and 2 movies that have come out. And season 12, wait, what? Season 12 is on now.
Oh.
This is not on Paramount Plus? Why is this not?
Maybe it's airing like on its original network up here or something. Who knows?
Yeah. So it started July and hasn't ended yet, but it's only 13 episodes as opposed to 26. So, oh no, this is getting the Strange New Worlds treatment. You get a shorter final season, and then they're leading into Paw Patrol, the Dino movie, coming up in 2026. So
oh my goodness.
There's a lot to the lore. Let me take a look at the characters here. I'm pretty sure this one is the one that I saw in the movie of like, hey, we got to add another toy. I'm gonna guess they do that with each of them because I don't recognize this dude here. So
yeah,
the first one, who Paw Patrol the movie, not to be confused with its sequel, Paw Patrol the Mighty Movie.
Oh wow!
I thought that was like weirdly better than it should be. It was kind of like, I'm gonna have to look up the writers and see. It's kind of like, I forget the guy who did Babylon 5, where he was kind of slumming it around elsewhere and ended up, writing, great stuff. Jonathan, You can help me out here. What's the I could look it up here on Wikipedia. Who's the creator of Babylon 5?
J. Michael Straczynski.
Yeah, there we go. He was kind of slumming it somewhere else, right? Or earning his stripes. What did he do?
Joe did Beauty and the Beast before that. The one with Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton.
Yeah, see, there you go.
I happen to know that I've actually been lucky enough to meet Joe a couple times and to talk with him, and yeah, he's a really, really smart guy, really, really interesting.
Yeah, so I will eventually watch, I guess, the sequel movie so I can watch the Dino movie. And for people who wonder, it's like, what are you doing when you're doing dishes? What are you doing when you're doing laundry? You got to do something, right? The Saturday afternoon movies. These are perfect for them, especially on streaming that you've already paid for.
Absolutely. I have an unconventional watch list item this week. I was traveling from our home in New Brunswick back here to Ontario, and so I didn't have a ton of time. But yesterday, on my way back, we stopped in Montreal, and I went to I had been told for years is one of the best comic stores in the country, if not the world. And it's a store that I had done business with online. It's called the Comic Hunter, and I've gone to their website before, and you can order things and they will mail them to you, and they'll put things aside, and they have a really good social media presence. And that's how I've interacted with them. So I've interacted with them for ages, a decade probably at least, and they've been around for a long time. But this was the first time I got a chance to go there. And so my watch list suggestion is, if you are a fan of comic books and or assorted nerddom, and you find yourself in Montreal, go to this place. Holy moly, is there a lot to see and do in this place. They basically have the entire basement of a business building, and it is just filled to the gills with everything nerd. There are comic books, of course, there are books, there is art, there are models, there are toys, and for some of this stuff has got to be 80, 90 years old. Some of it's brand new. They have super, super high-end comics, but then they have massive selection of cheap books for people just looking for some things to pick up or fill their, story runs and stuff. I was just blown away by the volume of stuff. And then I went over and introduced myself, and they knew who I was from the stuff that I had ordered over the years, and they gave me the tour, and they walked me around, and they were super nice. Mark, the owner, was super nice. All of his staff, super, super good. And I was just absolutely so thrilled. Again, it's one of those you never know what you're going to get. What do how people are online versus how they are in reality and stuff like that. And man, it was just an absolutely great. I was lucky enough to be there for a few hours yesterday, poking around and looking through stuff and chatting with them. And it was a blast. And so I'm happy to say that it met all my expectations and more. And I'll definitely be going back at some point. Although, as I said to Mark yesterday, he said, "Oh, it's funny that you've never come in." I said, "Well, it was 6.5 hours to drive from where I lived in Mississauga to that part of Montreal. And now I've moved to New Brunswick, and it's coincidentally 6.5 hours to drive from my house in New Brunswick to get to there now. So I've never lived what you'd call close. I'm guessing in 6.5 hours you could drive from your place in Seattle to San Francisco? It's a long way. So yeah, I just had a really great time, and I wanted to shout them out and say what a great time I had. And if you're looking to do business, I wholeheartedly endorse them. They were great when I was dealing with them online, but they're even nicer when you get to meet them in person. So really, really happy that I got a chance to stop there and enjoy that. And hopefully if you're a comic buff or if you're a big old nerd like me, you'll get a chance to pop in there because it is something else.
I'm trying to figure out what can I get to in 6 hours. Okay, so I can get across the state from Seattle to Spokane. I can basically get to Coeur d'Alene in about 4.5 hours. So what am I going to be in Montana? Let me see, Bozeman. Let's see. What? How is that 10 hours? Is it because of traffic right now? That doesn't math. What about Boise?
The game is much more fun when you start playing it in other places. In North America, you're right. It's a big continent, and you're not going as far as you think. But then you do it in Europe measure, and you're like, well, you could start in Paris and be in Copenhagen before 6 hours, right? Yeah.
Everything is so condensed and close. Is I got drunk with my friends and we wandered into another country.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. I mean, sure. You basically are across Washington State plus a little bit more into Idaho. is kind of the distance there for 6 hours.
Yeah, I never really got I get the east-west. I've never really gotten a good sense of I know, for my work previously, I spent, I've been to Seattle. One of my close friends lives out there, several friends actually. And, so I've been there, and I've been to San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego for work. And so I've got a sense of the distance between some of those things, but I think it's a lot farther up, the entire West Coast of the United States is a lot longer and farther than people seem to understand it is.
Yeah, the what is it? The real size of site that lets you ignore the Mercator projection distortions. It will show you how big is a country like France? How big is the United Kingdom versus the East Coast of the United States?
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite one is when they show you Greenland over Africa when you've been used to seeing an old globe, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, Africa's actually 10 times the size of Greenland.
Yeah. The projection doesn't really work in its favor for Africa. Just how freaking massive it is. It's, for one, people, it's definitely not a country. You need to stop doing that. There's lots of countries in this huge landmass.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that's going to do it for another episode. So, hey, Jaime, if people want to find you online, where can they look?
I'm on Instagram as @DevWithAHair.
And you can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky as @JPK News, or you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK. If you're looking for Tim, he's always on the socials as @TimMitra, TIMMITRA. And for our next episode, we'll hopefully get the gang back together, and we'll tackle the final episode of Strange New Worlds. And we'll catch up on. I was talking with Tim, who's traveling coincidentally in Europe, as we just talked about. We'll catch up with him. I know he wants to weigh in on some of the stuff that's going on in Foundation, so we'll touch back on that hopefully next time you join us. But in the meantime, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard.
Shut up, Wesley.
Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
It's very surreal. I got to be honest, I may be sitting here at Tim's desk doing this show.
Yeah, does it feel very different being on the Iron Throne?
One day, all this will be mine. No, it's so surreal because all the stuff that we see. When he is on camera, sometimes you'll see all the stuff, the little collectibles and stuff he's got around him, and all this computer stuff and all this nerdy stuff. And I'm right now facing the computer screen. I can see he's got an beautiful autographed picture of Buzz Aldrin standing on the moon. An autographed picture of Matt Smith as Doctor Who on here. He's got an autographed print of the original 2001 poster signed by the stars of that. It's really, there's a lot of nerding going on here. A lot of Lego, a lot of unbuilt Lego sets. He's got the Fantastic Four popcorn. No, it's not the popcorn cup. He's got the drink cup with the Funko Pop Sue Storm, Invisible Sue Storm on the top. It's quite a thing here.
Very cool. Very cool.
Do you have a little nerdy shrine somewhere in your house? Are you do you have something that sort of fits that bill?
I really don't have much. I have little knickknacks here up on my shelf that I'm looking at, but not enough. Not like something that's thought out as a collection. So I got to take some stuff out of boxes and closet and like find places and ways to display that.
Yeah, I always find it interesting, whether or not people make a space for the things that they love or feel passionate about. Again, an unabashed big old nerd from my whole life, and I've been lucky enough to have had understanding parents who weren't afraid to put things aside for me, so I was able to like hold on to, my old video games and my old toys and stuff like that. And so, when I was able to get out on my own as an adult, I could actually, hopefully set up a couple shelves and put that stuff out. And I know I'm really lucky that way. But even, I'm also lucky in that my wife is very absolutely fine with me and enjoying my hobbies and doesn't really, make any kind of fuss about wanting to have, the things that I enjoy out where I can enjoy them. But I do know, when talking to some of my friends who are like, I'm a huge, fan of this particular science fiction, horror, or fantasy, whatever. And their partners are like, okay, you can have one small space in the basement, but like, don't put your, replica batleth in my living room or whatever. It's interesting to see how, people compromise and share space, because obviously that's a big function of it. I know I have some friends who are, lifelong single people who are like, their places are decked out because no one's ever said no. I think it's interesting to see how people, display their fandom of whatever it is they're passionate about. And again, Tim's like me. He's an eclectic collector. He also, in addition to having, lots of science fiction and space and stuff like that, he does have some sports, and then he's also got his music. And he's got his computer stuff. Again, he's got like an original framed board from an original Mac. He's got, schematics for, stuff on the wall. He's got artwork. He's a Renaissance nerd. I love that he's got the framed in one of those shadow boxes. He's got the framed original iPhone all taken apart and do its parts and on display. I think that's a really cool thing to have, for somebody who's passionate about technology and design, right?
Indeed.
I don't know. I feel like I want to open one of these Lego sets and just build it while he's not here.
There you go. Just have it right there on his desk. And so it's like a double inconvenience. It's like also a thing he has to carefully move.
Yeah. No, it's definitely interesting. I'm hoping that as my new house gets more and more settled in, that I'll have a chance to set things up and really kind of enjoy my nerdy belongings. Right now, so much of my stuff is still all boxed up. I'm now must admit, seeing stuff out here, I'm like inspired. I'm like, put more of my stuff out soon. I don't know what they were displaying, but the people who owned the house previous to us actually installed 3 or 4 wall-mounted display cases with like glass shelves, lighting, the whole thing. They were like there when we got there. They were part of the house, and I haven't done anything with them yet because everything's still in boxes. But I'm like, I got some plans for you. This is going to be so much fun. Get something cool and fill them up. Comics and toys and all kinds of stuff. I'm excited to have those spaces. I'll have to put some pictures onto our Slack channel once they start getting going.
Very cool.
All right. Anything else you want to cover, or are we going to call it a night?
I think we're good. I will remind y'all that I will be out next week because I'm actually traveling Sunday through Thursday, almost Friday. So doing work stuff. I'll be in my same usual time zone, San Diego, but I'll be fully engrossed in this work trip. So
yeah.
Once again, I don't know what it is with my work schedule, man. Like, I can't believe I'm like missing pretty much every season finale. And I think of a couple of season intros. I'm like, if they were just shifted off by like a week, it would be, okay, Jaime missed episode 9. Whatever, he'll pick up the season finale at 10.
Well, luckily, it's going to work out because next week Tim is still traveling and you're off, and I'm not doing the show by myself. So we're going to not have a show next week.
Okay.
So we're going to come back and we'll do all of us together. We'll cover the finale of Strange New Worlds, a couple episodes of Alien, Earth, and then some Peacemaker, and throw in some Foundation. We'll have like a big deluxo getting the gang back together, hopefully on the 18th, and we'll be able to do something from there. But and even for me, I'm here in Toronto. We drove yesterday here, and then we're going back on Monday. And then on Wednesday, I have to drive 3 hours plus from our home there down to St. John in New Brunswick because I have a work meeting on Thursday morning. So I'm not even sure when I'll be home on Thursday. So it's probably for the best that we have the time. I love San Diego. I don't know. Have you been before?
Yes, this work conference rotates around, and I have been to the San Diego version before.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. But I expect the weather to be pretty nice. We'll be at
that's what they do there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the San Diego Convention Center.
Yep.
So they've definitely got plenty of space there. There's usually multiple conferences going on at once because it's just so dang big there.
Massive, yeah. It's. I thought it was definitely felt like the downtown was changing over last time I was there, and that was a good decade and a half ago. But I thought it was a really neat little city, and as they always will tell you, the weather is almost always beautiful there. I had the best burrito I think I've ever had in my entire life in San Diego. It was the size of my arm, but was it good? Very, very fond memories of attending. There was actually I was there for video game developers because Sony had a studio there along with a bunch of development stuff going on there at one point for PlayStation. So we went down there and interviewed a bunch of different people and did some stuff for the old gig. But it was, what a beautiful place. Well, I'm sorry you have to rough it in San Diego. I'll think of you as I'm looking out onto the fog-filled harbor of St. John, New Brunswick next week.
There we go. Positive thinking.
There you go. All right, buddy. Well, good to talk to you. We'll catch up hopefully on the 18th.
All right. See you then.
All right. Take care.
Later. Bye.